God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The famous 20th century theologian Reinhold Niebuhr first wrote this prayer in the 1930s. Soon after, the burgeoning Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step fellowship popularized the prayer as it became something of an aphorism in recovery communities. These are words that have saved many lives, the lives of those suffering under the weight and impact of addiction. The truth is that alcoholism and addiction has impacted the lives of many people I know and love. How about you? Do you also know what it feels like to be helpless in the face of this disease? Do you also seek the serenity, courage, and wisdom in that oft recited prayer? For yourself, for your loved ones, for your community. I love the Serenity Prayer because for me it so quickly distills what is at the heart of so much of the pain caused by addiction. That is isolation and the desire for control. The reality is there is simply so much we cannot control in this beautiful and broken world in which we live out our days. Unfortunately, in spite of my greatest longings for omnipotence, I am deeply aware of the fact that my own capacity for control remains frustratingly limited. This doesn't mean that we have no control, but rather that our control has edges, that our human agency is always qualified by causes and conditions far beyond ourselves. This is, I think, where the God part comes in. It's not that I believe you need to be a theist to understand the meaning of the Serenity Prayer. Sometimes I substitute spirit of life or mysterious universe instead. For me, the theological language is not essential. What is essential is the deeper sentiment it expresses, namely, I cannot do this alone. I cannot do this alone. I, as my singular human self, am imperfect, if beautifully and painfully limited, and I, like all of us, need others. In spite of what Simon and Garfunkel once sang, I am not, nor would I ever really want to be, a rock or an island. If addiction is at least in part an expression of the pain of isolation, then recovery is in part the alternative of a connection with a love that stretches far beyond ourselves. It is this spiritual acceptance of my own limitedness, of my need for community and connection, that keeps me coming back to church over and over and over again. Because this, dear ones, is something I can control. I can choose to move out of isolation. I can choose to ask for help when I need it. I can choose to find courage in a community of seekers and fellow travelers that far transcends my own finitude. This is where the wisdom of Niebuhr's prayer resides, in a prayer for healing that begins with connection, in a prayer for healing that begins with love.